Welcome into Reynolds Coliseum on the campus of NC State University in Raleigh, North Carolina, the site of this evening's college gymnastics meet on ESPN3, where it'll be the Panthers of Pitt in a dual meet with the Wolfpack hosting of NC State. Well, hi there. We are not on site, pandemic things, but Darren Vaught, Rachel Garland with you. And Rachel, excited to cover another gymnastics meet with you. Good to see you, of course. And namely excited for this one, the top two teams in the preseason rankings in the Eagle.
Yeah, like you said, came in ranked preseason back-to-back 1 and 2. The thing is that's how they finished last year as well. They were ranked 1 and 2, and both of these teams have talked about unfinished business, and clearly they've got some unfinished business with each other. Well,
Pitt comes in, you see the record there, a season ago, 7-7 before everybody's campaign got cut short. They'll come to Raleigh this evening without their head coach, as Samantha Snyder not here for COVID-related protocol. Ryan Snyder, an assistant on the staff, her husband also not here. You can imagine how that works in a world of contact tracing. That's Dave Kuzara in his 4th season on staff, experience as a head coach at Western Michigan and UMass as well. And for NC State, Rachel, they've taken this league by storm the past few years, right?
Yes, Coach Landris has done a phenomenal job of taking the original NC State Wolfpack gymnastics team and just elevating that caliber. So she has won numerous awards. Her team has consistently been ranked very high in the nation and in the Eagle Conference. So she's done a great job.
You see their consecutive Eagle Head Coach of the Year awards in 2020. By the way, her assistants, Philip Ogletree and Bob Starkle, assistant coaches of the year in the Eagles. So it's a full staff effort to make this Wolfpack team perform as well as they do. And now we'll get started with the first rotation as NC State on the vault, and Pitt will be on bars, as that's Karina Jordan to open things up for the Wolfpack, a freshman, 2-time Junior Olympics national qualifier.
Yeah, vault's always been it's a strong event for this Wolfpack team. The thing is they really have got to focus on their landings. Year over year, they just can't stick the landings on vault, and that's been one of the harder things to overcome when you're really trying to get those 49-plus scores. Every time you take a hop or a step on the landing, it's just really tough. And so consistently, that's one thing that NC State's really had to work on.
So you see Jordan there. Olivia Miller, meanwhile, to lead off on the uneven bars for Pitt as we get rolling the 2021 Eagle Gymnastics season.
Great way to open, lay out your Chinko full. That's one of the most common vaults that we'll see, either that full or even a full and a half. The full has actually been devalued down to a 9.95 start value. But again, you saw that large hop on that landing, just unable to be controlled, and they'll definitely take a 10th or 2 on the overall total there.
Olivia Miller here, one of the key returners for Pitt. First team all-around Eagle performer in 2019 and was second team with the floor exercise in 2020. You see there, she'll be followed up by Trinity Macy and Lauren Beckwith.
Bars, they've done some really good work over the years, especially under this leadership crew. 49.275 just a couple of years ago in 2018 is a program high. So again, all of these, I want to say new coaches, they're all in their 4th season. So I feel like it's still a fairly new program under this current genre of coaches, and they've done some great things.
Miller with a strong performance to start there. Seemed like a pretty strong landing as well to finish things out.
And we're going to see a lot of new faces in both of these lineups. So they both had some strong individuals unfortunately graduate, but it happens. It happens in college. That is always the goal, is student first. And they've really been they've done a great job recruiting some new talent.
That's Madison Benson, another freshman. So 1-2 right out of the gate for NC State. A couple of freshmen. Benson, a 2019 Texas State Level 10 first place in all-around. So certainly capable of doing a lot of impressive things out here.
Yeah, and a very unique vault that she did, kind of the half on onto the vault with the front flip off. It's a blind landing because you can't actually see the ground as you're coming down. And again, she's a freshman, some of the nerves, there's a pandemic going on. It's a lot to handle as a freshman, so I think some of that may have gotten to her. It's also a very hard floor, and they might not always practice on such a hard landing.
There's Trinity Macy, and it's interesting that you bring that up, Rachel. I'm interested in your perspective because you've competed, you have coached, you have judged. From the perspective of these young women, I mean, it's about as odd a time as ever to be a college athlete. As you saw Benson when she got done with the vault, immediately the mask goes on. There are just so many factors in play that aren't normally so. But obviously, they're amped up and thankful that they get to begin a 2021 season.
Yeah, and gymnastics is one of those sports where you don't really have an off season. Yes, you technically have a summer off season, but none of these gymnasts actually take an off season. They are constantly practicing. Gymnastics is one of those sports where you can't take the time off or you lose the skills. So the pandemic has really done a number to all of them. I talked to both head coaches earlier in the week just in terms of if we're going to see any new skills, and both of them reiterated the fact that this year we're not so much focused on new skills. It's more so let's perfect what we have and let's make sure we've been safe enough going from taking a few months off to really getting back into competition shape.
So 2 competitors through for each team. You see Karina Jordan with a 9.725, a 9.725 also for Olivia Miller opening on the bars for Pitt. And then the added score from Benson. And another vault there, Haley Zarrett for the Wolfpack.
Another unique vault for a handspring with a double front twist. Very hard to complete the 2 twists and also very hard to stick because when you're spinning and trying to land at the same time, your momentum of twisting is just going to keep you twisting.
Obviously some sophisticated vaults for NC State so far. What's the risk assessment for trying to do one of those landings, as you had mentioned, with both Benson and Zarrett? Is it one of those things where it's sort of an all or nothing score-wise potential, or is there room for error?
There's a lot of room for error. Anything in gymnastics, there's a lot of room for error. I think the flipping motion is a little bit easier to control, but then you also have the risk of a hyperextension of a knee, whereas the twisting one, a little bit more complex to actually stick the landing, and again, you can still have some knee issues if your body keeps twisting, but your feet decide to not, to actually stick.
Now on to Lauren Beckwith of Pitt. Beckwith 7 meets on the beam in 2020 and a rough spill there. Sophomore trying to make a strong impression.
Yeah, and one fall it's not detrimental yet. So I will throw that out there. So one thing about college gymnastics is you actually put the top 6 up on each event, and the top 5 scores count. So this, right now, they're just going to assume that this is going to be their drop score. Now, if they do have another fall, that's when they're going to start to get a little bit nervous, a little bit worried. Definitely fighting on some of these movements.
Beckwith finishing strong.
Yeah, you saw that struggle when she was kind of casting up to a handstand, trying to get over the bar. Just, again, some of that's an endurance thing, some of it's a nervous tension thing. It's the first meet of the season. They haven't competed since March 12th, neither of these teams. So it's been a very, very long off season.
How about Emily Shepard there on the vault for NC State?
I think that was a great one where you can see she was more of the veteran in terms of the landing, what she was doing, the amplitude, the air, just the dynamics overall. You can tell she was, this one was, oh, I've been here before.
She certainly has. First team All-Eagle on vault and bars, as you see there last season. So interesting that she follows up things where the Wolfpack started with a couple of freshmen. You get the sure bet, the more reliable competitor.
Yeah, so again, that last score for Pitt is definitely going to be quite a bit lower than they were expecting, but they will be hoping that they can throw that score away. That's going to be their drop score moving forward. And typically when you have a routine like that, it takes the judges a little longer to actually calculate the scores. So you see a smaller pause just in between. So some of the judges having to do more calculations. There's a lot that goes into it with bonus combinations and not earning some bonus combinations. Interesting to see. Normally they have a helper sitting beside the judge that actually flips over the numbers and turns everything around. This year the judges obviously doing that themselves.
Trying to be as safe and as distant as possible, assumedly. And you see Lauren Beck with 8.550, her score that comes in.
Yeah, 8.55, definitely not the score that you're looking for. Most of these teams, actually both of these teams, they're looking to score in that 196 total range, which is a 49 per event. Breaks down to a 9.8 really per gymnast, but they're really looking to keep everything 9.75 and above.
This is Katie Chamberlain for Pitt. She suffered a season-ending knee injury and missed last year. But this is her event.
And I think you can see why. So far, everything very clean, very crisp. She knows exactly where she's supposed to be.
Junior from Simi Valley, California. Lands it. I would have to think, Rachel, that that's going to improve her career best of a 9.675.
Yes. If that does not get more than a 9.675, then I may have to go judge the meet. Yes, that was a fantastic routine. Just that small hop on the landing. I mean, and a very, very small hop. So you can tell she is pleased with that one.
Have to imagine frustrating to miss last season, even as it was halted before its scheduled conclusion. And that was Chloe Negretti's run on the vault, finishing up.
And this NC State team, I mean, they have gotten a slew of all Eagle awards, all academic awards. Again, the coaching staff for the Wolfpack, they really set the bar high.
So following Negretti, it'll be Gabrielle Diaz as the sixth and final vault competitor for NC State, but not before Katrina Coca goes through her routine on the uneven bars for the Panthers. A career best of a 9.9 on the bars for this grad transfer from Kentucky.
Actually in her sixth year.
That's correct. She was injured last season as well as in 2019, which was her senior year for the Wildcats in the SEC.
Yeah, so definitely got the experience under her. You know, unfortunately some injuries, but it really does happen with gymnastics, and it's so great that she has actually been awarded 4 full years of eligibility.
So it's been a while since she's competed, but again in 2018 as a junior at Kentucky, she scored 9.9 4 times in that season, and she's got that mark 5 times in her career.
And even taking a couple of seasons off from injury, I mean, you would never know it by that routine. So that was phenomenal. It was very, very clean. Again, just those small little hops on the landings, but it's been a long time for any competition for any of these girls. So I understand it. It's a lot mentally.
Diaz with a nice run on the vault for the 6th and final for NC State.
take a look at that one. So just a layout Yurchenko. So it starts from a 9.7. So the maximum score that she can get is a 9.7 on that one. No extra twisting or anything along those lines. Pretty straight. They'll probably take some form, but it got some good amplitude, just a little hop on the landing. Again, NC State kind of using that as their drop score most likely, and I assume working on some upgrades in the gym.
And now rounding things out on the bars for Pitt is a first-year competitor, Faith Lero, who was first in bars at the Level 10 Florida State Championships in 2019. So this is specialty of hers. I would imagine to get the call to be the 6th competitor in this event in her very first collegiate meet, it says a lot about what she can do.
It definitely does. Typically what you see is you save your best for last. Now, there are other things that you do, just like NC State did, where they may have put in, seen how.
Oh, goodness.
Oh, goodness.
Like Lero.
Something.
Yeah, favoring her left arm there.
Maybe a shoulder of some sort.
I mean, that was really impressive up until that point.
That was a great bar routine. And again, I was saying you typically save your best for last. NC State took a little bit different approach where they put in 5 gymnasts that they could almost count on for good scores. And then that 6th spot is you can gain experience. You can use it as okay, she might not be quite ready yet. But I think for Pitt in this case, they were really saving their best for last. But this shoulder injury does not look, it really does not look good.
Anytime you have someone competing like that on the uneven bars, that momentum can carry. I mean, obviously, it's a lot of grip strength. You would rely on shoulders a lot. And
yes.
something like that is tough to see, especially coming out on fire in her first collegiate meet. But that's it for the first rotation. We'll get you scores on the other side and move on to rotation 2, where the teams will swap events on the other side here on ESPN3. Faith Lero, the freshman, but here's a look at some of the other runs through the vault for NC State.
Yeah, I think NC State started off pretty strong on vault. Some of the scores came in a little bit lower in like the 9.4, 9.5 range, but again, it's their first time back in almost a year. A lot of freshmen, and so we're going to see that improve, but you could see from some of the returning kind of team members, from Chloe Negretti at 9.825, Emily Shepard at 9.8. So the ones that have been there are definitely going to lead the way.
And then a couple of stories of retribution for Pitt. Katie Chamberlain, Katrina Coca, back from injuries at least last year. In Coca's case, 2 consecutive years of injury as well.
Yeah.
Okay for themselves, individually at least, with the uneven bars, and that was the first run at the vault for Jordan Cesarini for Pitt.
Yeah, most definitely. Like you said, they're going to have to come back from a lot, just having a few falls on bars. Unfortunately, it's not the way that they wanted to start their season. It's not the way they wanted to start their season opener by any means. But they can bring everything back. They really can on vault under this program. They actually got a program high on vault last year under their current coaches, a 49.325. Will they get that today? Probably not. It's not something you typically want to do in the season opener. You want to save that closer towards regionals. But it definitely can be accomplished by this team.
And she was not originally listed in the lineup as going first on the bars for NC State, but you got to look at Lauren Kent there. last year's Eagle Gymnast of the Year.
They've got just maybe another minute or so. So this is their touch warm-up period. So these girls actually warmed up for competition probably around 4:30. So it's been a little while since they've actually touched this apparatus. So they do get a couple of minutes before competition actually starts to just kind of get their mindset right, get back in the groove for bars, literally get back in the swing of things. Hop on there, do a couple of things, and then you go straight into competition. But it is typically just because it's been a couple hours since they've actually warmed up this event.
And Kent, an important gymnast for NC State, no doubt. Again, reigning Gymnast of the Year in the league. Not in the lineup this evening, so maybe just getting a little bit of extra work in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they use these season opening meets for a variety of different reasons. It could be that, it would all be speculation, so we won't go there. But there are some reasonings that the coaches have made the lineups the way that they are. And really, we should see Lauren throughout the rest of the season, especially as it gets closer to conference championships and regionals.
And this will be Jordan Cesarini beginning things for Pitt. She'll be followed by Olivia Miller, Emily Lazuski, Nayara Winder, and Sierra Ward. So only 5 to go on the vault for Pitt. They'll have to accept all 5 of those scores, right, is how the ruling will go.
They will definitely have to. And again, it was a pretty good leadoff for Cesarini. Lay out your Chenko full, very common vault in collegiate gymnastics. We'll see tons of those throughout this season. A little bit of some form and execution errors, a little hop on the landing, but overall I think that was a pretty good start.
And for Cesarini, that really her tertiary event. She's more of an asset with the floor exercise and the beam. First team floor in 2018, second team floor and beam in 2019. As Karina Jordan leads off again, as she did with the vault.
And the leadoff spot is definitely a tough one to be in. I was actually the leadoff individual on the uneven bars. They're counting on you for a strong hit routine. You really set the bar as far as building that momentum for the rest of the lineup. So as a freshman, she's got big shoes to put on. Nice double layout there at the end, and just that slide of the feet. So again, I mentioned kind of at the top of the broadcast, NC State's really got to focus on, I like where she kept her mask, sorry. But they've got to focus on some of those landings. So even those little things, that slide of the feet is a 10th in overall deduction. Every gymnast that goes, you get 5 of those, you're half a point down automatically just from a landing. And it's something that it's an easy correction.
Now to Olivia Miller.
We'll see her a couple more times this evening as well. She is one of their all-around gymnasts. Another great vault for Pitt.
Miller, career best 9.825 on the vault. Getting another look at it.
I don't know if it'll quite come close to that today, but again, you're not looking to peak the first week. You want to peak as it gets later in the season. This is really just dipping your toes in the water. You definitely don't want to jump in on the deep end. So they've got to really get back in the mindset. They compete every weekend for the next 12, 13 weeks, depending on how their season is laid out. So it's a lot. It's a lot of pressure mentally. It's a challenge physically. The things that they have to do with their bodies. So you definitely don't want to put too much emphasis on going out for the big scores this early on.
And now is Casey Nelson for NC State. This is the first time she in her career has competed on the uneven bars.
I think this one's actually Diaz, Gabriel Diaz.
Oh, forgive me. Yeah, that's Gabriel Diaz. Nelson will be next. But Diaz, another freshman, so she and Jordan leading things off in both of them.
That was a great save right there. You could see kind of the wiggle, the arch of the back, and she was really fighting with her shoulders, like we've mentioned before on bars, really fighting to pull that move back over the bar so that she could complete her dismount. Definitely some form deductions in there, but better than falling.
And this is Emily Lazewski for Pitt. A lot of momentum going into that landing.
Yeah, again, another layout Yurchenko full, so common. Can't stress that enough. We will see some more bigger vaults as the season goes on, but like NC State with those landings, honestly, that was probably a 2/10 landing as well. The bigger the jump, the more they're going to deduct. So if it's normally, shoulder width, maybe a foot or two in length, they'll stick with a 10th. But if you get to those like 3-foot jumps, those large hops backwards or a large step in one direction, the judges can take a couple of 10s.
Lazewski, the sophomore, that's her strongest event to this point in her career, the vault.
Mm-hmm.
And now we have Casey.
Now it's Casey Nelson.
There's Casey Nelson making her uneven bars debut. As we'll see her on the beam and floor exercise as well.
Yeah, and she's been a strong player for the Wolfpack. She is one of their seniors, so definitely have some routines that they'll have to replace next year. But she, like you said, debut on the bars, but she's been a strong competitor for the Wolfpack throughout her years.
See the 9-7, the score coming in for Gabrielle Diaz.
And I think this year we probably will see the lineups change more than we typically do in a non-pandemic. A lot of that's going to be due to COVID protocols, just depending on the school, depending on the team, depending on how the gymnast is feeling, really, because a lot of times, if you were feeling under the weather, you would still come out here and compete. This year, you feel under the weather, you're out of the lineup for a couple of weeks.
Right, everybody's extra paranoid, and of course, as they should be.
Yeah, so one thing that the coaches have really had to do is make sure that the lineups on every event have a lot more depth than they've had to in the past. And you may be a 4th, 5th, or 6th alternate, and at some point in the season, there's a good chance that you're going to see the competition floor.
And here is Pitt's youngest competitor, Nayera Winder, a freshman, only 17 years old currently, trained with First State Gymnastics in Delaware as a level 10 gymnast each of the last 3 years.
Yeah, they've got big plans for for this freshman. They're just so anxious to get her out here on the floor. And you could see she landed there a little bit too straight-legged. Definitely unfortunate. So in a lot of gyms practice, and I'm not sure how Pitt is set up. I know how NC State's practice facility is. When you vault, you actually vault into what they call a resi pit, a large chunk of foam that's 12 feet long by 10 feet wide, and it's probably 4 to 5 feet deep. And the way that they mimic some of these harder landings is they throw plywood on top of it, and then you have your landing mats. But the plywood does not replicate a basketball floor with the mats on top. So you get some of these harder landings, and then you can start to see why these first few meets of the season, they're not so focused on their landings, because they're really trying to just be safe and get that feeling back. So you could see on that front landing I mentioned when NC State's gymnasts did some of those blind landings. If you're not prepared for it, it's a really easy way to unfortunately dislocate some knees.
I think up until that point, you could really tell Nayera Winder, as we have Katie Cox for NC State now. Just the momentum that she took into that vault routine. What an athlete.
That was huge. And I know, at least I was very anxious to see her floor routine. We'll see if she's still able to compete. But it is said to be a crowd pleaser.
Cox wraps things up on the bars where she was first-team All-Eagle a season ago. Pleased with her performance.
Yeah, that was a gorgeous routine. You could see how squeezed her legs were together. Her body line was straight the entire time. And then again, just that little, I may have been the only one that saw it, but that little slide of the foot on the dismount. But Katie, it's interesting that Nairi is a 17-year-old freshman, because Katie was the same way. She actually graduated early from high school. She graduated in December and then came in that same year and started competing her freshman year in January with NC State.
Now Sierra Ward, the closer on the vault, and that seemed easy. I mean, that was smooth.
I think for her it is. I think that vault's probably pretty easy. I would love to see her add another half twist to that to get it up to that 10.0 start value. So again, might be something that she's working on and just not quite ready to put it on the floor yet.
Well, here's a replay. Sierra Ward, first-team All-Eagle in the vault a season ago.
I mean, you could see she had so much time by the time she completed the twist to when she landed. She could easily throw another half turn in there. At least I think she could.
And that rounds out Pitt's run at the vault.
So we'll have two gymnasts back-to-back on bars, just because, again, Pitt does not have a sixth competitor.
It'll be Emily Shepard here, and then Meredith Robinson to follow her.
So a little bit of a struggle there at the beginning for Emily, but she's a fighter, she's a competitor. Definitely one of the standout gymnasts on this Wolfpack team.
First team All-Eagle on the bars and the vault a season ago.
She tried to go for that stuck landing, just had to step off to the side just a tidbit. But she was going for it. So that's good to see. And I think some of that just comes because she is an experienced gymnast. So this is, she's only a sophomore. But having a season under her belt, she knows what to expect quite a bit more. So I think we'll see some of that come through this year.
Well, I think we've seen a lot of, for both teams, a lot of those freshmen with big expectations over the next few years. There's a lot to be said for a sophomore that knows what to expect. Mm-hmm. And there's a level of comfortability. We're all somewhat uncomfortable given circumstances surrounding athletics today with the pandemic and everything, but that extra added comfortability from having competed in a meet like this a year ago, at least one of them helps.
It is one of those things where your teammates and your coaches you can watch every collegiate gymnastics meet known to man. Until you're in that spot, you don't know what it's like. There's a lot of mental pressure that you put on yourself. Your team has pressure put on you. There's so many things, but that is one thing that the freshmen gain. And it's so great to see so many freshmen in the lineup, because if they can get all of that out by mid-season this year, they've got 3.5 seasons to really make a huge impact.
Meredith Robinson here, speaking of huge impacts, made one right away in her debut in 2019 in a dual meet at Michigan State. She finished first in this routine.
In this event.
Second team All-Eagle in 2019 that same season. First team a season ago. Easy to see why she's the closer.
Yeah, this is her event. It's I hate to put that pressure on somebody, but
by nature of what it is, though, Rachel, I guess the sport does that, right?
It really does. In collegiate gymnastics, you can definitely be a specialist, and she is a bar specialist. And I think you can see it just as she goes. Her legs are glued together. Her toes are pointed. Her arms are straight. When she hits those handstands, it's a perfectly straight line.
And the landing was there as well.
The landing was great. Again, a teeny tiny hop, probably half of a tenth, because the judges have to take something, and you can't judge in quarter tenths, unfortunately. So they probably took a half, but if that's all she has to work on throughout the season, then she's in great shape.
We'll get another look at the final run on the uneven bars for NC State, and there's that just slight hop backward as you alluded to.
Yeah, it's the tiniest thing, and again, for most people, if you weren't looking for it, you may not have even known it was there.
So that's it for rotation number 2. We'll come back with scores and see where we stand, Pitt and NC State at Reynolds Coliseum. And on the floor exercise, it will be Pitt, but Rachel, this last rotation through, NC State continues to build on a lead as Pitt stumbled out of the gate, but a good showing in the vault. They
really did. They had, we'll take a look at some of the highlights here, but they had a very, very strong showing on vault. A lot of Yurchenko fulls. Again, still some areas to improve, and then just the one last one where, you know, again, kind of the funky landing, but some key highlights with NC State. So again, Katie Cox in the middle of the lineup there. You saw Katrina Jordan starting everything off, and then finally Meredith Robinson kind of wrapping everything up there at the end. So really strong performance overall by NC State on the uneven bars. A 49.025 in a season opener for them is huge. That, not sure if that's a program record, but that's probably one of their highest season openers.
And you mentioned Meredith Robinson closing things out there, matched a career best 9.875 with her score.
And again, it was just that little teeny tiny shuffle of a foot. It wasn't even a hop, it was a shuffle on the landing, and she would have been over that 9.9.
And so Pitt will get started first on the floor exercise. Here's a look at their vault results as they went with just 5 competitors.
And
although it's less likely, correct me if I'm wrong, less likely for you to have a major fault with the vault that is such as someone on the bars takes a fall, and that's obviously the score you're going to scrap.
Yeah, you are correct. I mean, vault, it is more of a black and white event, kind of a take it or leave it, so to speak. And those scores weren't bad. Again, for a season opener, I think they did a great job. Mid-9.6s. They obviously want to get those a little bit higher, but they ended up with a 48.425. If they can get that closer to a 49, so just a few tens here and there, you had 1/10 per gymnast, and you're at a 49 pretty close. So.
Well, this, I mean, certainly important for both teams, as you see there, numbers 1 and 2, respectively, NC State and Pitt in the Eagle preseason rankings. We mentioned it at the beginning of the show, and through a couple of rotations, the Wolfpack with a slight leg up, but we're only midway through.
Yeah, and interesting to note here is Temple and Long Island are new to the Eagle Gymnastics
Brand
Conference.
New to the conference.
Yeah, so LIU, Collegiate Gymnastics' newest Division I program, and they decided to join the Eagle Conference. So this is their first year in business. So we are all very anxious to see where they're at. Temple was previously a member of the Eastern Collegiate Athletic Conference, and they have chosen to join Eagle. New Hampshire, UNC, NC State, Pitt, and Towson are each charter members of the conference dating back to, I believe, 1996.
And Temple, a pretty common non-conference opponent for most of these teams. I would say out of the past handful of years, most Eagle teams have seen a meet in which Temple has competed.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, with their location, it's an easy travel meet, you know, by either Temple or Temple going somewhere.
Casey Nelson to begin things for the Wolfpack on the balance beam. And Rachel, I know you as a competitor, this was your most dreaded, right? We've discussed that before.
Hated it. Not my event.
What about some reminders of what to look for in a solid beam routine?
Yeah, so there's a variety of skills that they have to do. So she's going to start off right here with her acro series. So 2 acrobatic elements connected together. Hers is very unique, where she does a forward acro into a backward. The one we're going to see most common is a back handspring layout step out. They also have to do this leap combination where they show a 180-degree split. So that's one of the aspects. They have to do this, a minimum of a 360-degree turn. That is a dreaded skill. That has been a skill in every beam routine since these gymnasts were probably 6 or 7 years old when they were a level 5 gymnast. they mostly go by level 10 rules, so you can see kind of where everything goes. But it's like it's not over till the fat lady sings, and if you forget to actually put emphasis on that full turn, it's something that you're bound to fall on. And then they all have to dismount. So she's going to do a side aerial into a full twist. We'll see that a number of times. We'll see some harder dismounts as well. But again, the judges are looking for a variety of these skills along with directionality changes and level changes, and there's a lot that goes into choreographing these routines. But Kelsey, a great start to the Wolfpack.
Casey, that's one of her two, I guess, strongest events, as we saw her on the uneven bars for the first time in her career as well. But in 2020, she was second team in the floor exercise, presumably her best. We'll see that on the next rotation. But for Pitt in the floor exercise, here's Trinity Macy to get things started.
Trinity, one of their freshmen that, again, they've got big hopes for. And Pitt typically very strong on floor, just overall.
Macy here won a team state championship at the prep level in Texas, competing with Metroplex Gymnastics.
Floor is always one of those great events where it gives the gymnast a really good opportunity to show who they are. They can get a little bit more into the personality as far as the types of music that you choose, the types of skills that you're allowed to do, whereas the other events you can't really show that much character to it. A little bit on beam, but definitely on floor. Unfortunately, she did have that fall there on her last tumbling pass. You get gassed in some of these meets, so you're out here for a minute and a half, tumbling, jumping, dancing around. By the time you get to that final tumbling run, you're out of breath, and so she just may not have had the endurance yet. I know as a freshman, I probably fell more on the last pass on floor than I care to remember, but I just hadn't built up that endurance yet.
So a tough go of things. They've had to scrap a couple of scores by way of fall so far today.
Yeah, and I know Trinity is definitely one that their coaches are looking at to make a pretty immediate impact for the team. So she'll compete on multiple events. She's definitely one that they're going to be leaning on throughout this season. And again, this is her first time out, so no harm, no foul.
Yeah, and we'll see her on the beam as well, so a chance to maybe redeem herself and pick up some self-esteem there as well.
Definitely.
This is Kaylin Folan for NC State. Very much a specialist in this event. She competed on beam in the final 9 meets of 2020, setting a career best 9.8 in a dual meet versus Minnesota, which was, if I'm not mistaken, Rachel, their very last before the season was halted.
Yes, exactly. And interestingly enough, she's right here local. Like all her family, all her friends, she grew up in Morrisville, and typically she would have a ton of fans in the stands. Tonight they have, I don't know, 15 people in the stands, and it's really just immediate family for probably some of the seniors. Everyone else gets cardboard cutouts.
There are a lot of the cardboard cutouts in Reynolds Coliseum, as Folan with the slight step forward on the landing, but
they should travel him from every sport, just and then accrue more. So there's there's some of them.
There are various fans. I know I did see some NC State icons in other ones. There's Scotty McCreery, country music star.
I like the little baby, and I'm sure the baby's probably the loudest one.
I know I earlier on one of the shots saw there was a Jim Valvano and Kay Yao, of course.
In crazy times, you have to come to crazy measures.
It's certainly true. And you were talking off air about the number of things that it's just interesting to see how they've changed because of the circumstances of the times with the pandemic, and just contemplating, hey, what might stay that way more often going forward.
The way they did kind of their team introductions, NC State normally lines up on the side of the floor, and for the national anthem, they put one hand on the shoulder of the person in front of them, whereas today they were spread out the full length of the vault runway, so 85, 90 feet, to make sure that they had proper distance between every individual. And then at the end of every rotation, they get some words of encouragement from their coaches. Normally they put their hands in and throw them up at the end, but the circle was much larger today. Nobody was touching. So again, very interesting takes on just how they, you don't want to get rid of your traditions. Those traditions are ones that I did. They're ones that people years before me did. So you just have to get a little bit more creative.
Emily Lazuski making her floor debut. Certainly a lot of personality early in
yes. And she is completely across the country from home, being a native of California.
Actually enrolled a semester early, so she was another one of those. She's a sophomore now, but was another one of those younger competitors.
And I think we'll see her. No, we will not see her on beam. I think last year she actually earned the season best on beam against NC State. But we will not see her at the line on the beam today.
Yeah, she did. A 9.725. That was back on February 8th. No beam for her today.
Was able to pull that. I was a little nervous on that punch front there at the end. You may have been able to see kind of a little stall between the flips, but she was able to pull that around. I would say veteran move, but she's not so much of a veteran, but she is. You know, she knows what she's getting herself into.
Yeah, no, as we stated before, there's a lot to be said for a season of experience under your belt, even just
2/3 of a season.
A partial season, yes.
2/3 of a season.
And here's Karina Jordan, who has been very involved.
Yes, and we'll see her again. So you can see right there the acro connection and then the little stumble at the end. But again, a little stumble, much better than a fall. A 10.32 is better than 5. So, and then one other thing to note is even on floor, they don't actually start from a 10.0. So their technical routine starts from a 9.5, and they have to do these elements in combination to earn bonus points. So while they're earning bonus points, they're also getting deductions. Double-edged sword, but that's how they get to that 10.0 start value, and that's why sometimes you'll see the judges put up something slightly lower than a 10.0 on one side. It's that way on bars, beam, and floor, so they all start from a 9.5. Vault, you're given a start value depending on what vault you actually do.
So Karina Jordan finishes up her first beam routine. We'll get a second look at it. Other than the slight stumble, Rachel, it seemed to me like she fared pretty well.
For a freshman, I think, again, that's why she did so well as a club gymnast coming into collegiate gymnastics. I think that's why NC State was so glad to be able to pick her up and sign her as an athlete. First meet out freshman year, and you're one of the all-arounders. I think they're showing you where they want you to be.
And now we'll see Jordan Cesarini. This is an event. She was first team All-Eagle in 2018, second team along with the beam in 2019.
Cesarini, she has just been a huge player for this Pitt gymnastics team. I know, again, while they're always excited for their seniors to graduate and to move on and to start the rest of their lives, it's also one of those bittersweet moments where oh, now what? Like we have to replace these routines.
Especially with an all-around competitor as Pitt has a few. You know, it's assessing and realizing that in some cases you're not just replacing one person in one event.
Right.
It can have a ripple effect on your entire lineup that you write.
It really does, and they just in their leadership, they do so much for the team, even outside of just competing, as far as bringing the freshmen along and setting the stage, setting the momentum, showing reactions to adversity, and she has definitely been a star in that.
And especially, how impactful has she probably been on a day like today, where your head coach and one of your assistant coaches haven't made the trip. It's an odd circumstance season anyway.
It really is, and I think you can tell she enjoys this event. Very unique first tumbling pass. I will say the nice thing, so I've started seeing it more and more with collegiate gymnastics, is you don't have to stick a landing on floor like you would on vault or the dismount on bars or beam, something along those lines. You're allowed to take that step into a lunge position for safety reasons, because the floor is very springy. But a lot of them are starting to add in some of these jumps and into an easier flip, because it adds bonus tense. And then you do get the stick, because it's easier to control a straddle jump stick than a double back. So I've seen it a lot more throughout the last few years. Unfortunately, I had to put her hands down on that last double back as her final pass. But again, I think they're just a little bit winded, and with the way they've had to train lately and been limited in training, just a lot of factors going into it. So just not quite the endurance that she'll have the rest of the season, I have no doubt. It looks like we've got a conference between the judges for beam.
Some deliberation, perhaps.
Yeah, definitely.
Over Karina Jordan's score.
And that typically happens when the judges have to be within a certain range. So you're typically given, roughly 2 10s. So if one judge had, essentially if their scores were out of range, they have to conference, come together, and understand what the other judge saw or didn't see in order to come up with the score that they had. The other judge that you see there is actually the meet referee, so not a judge on one of the events, but kind of oversees everything just to make sure that the judges are being fair, that they're not showing any bias towards one particular gymnast or one particular team. And so she is now over there just to see if she can help provide any sort of insight.
Well, let's look at Jordan's dismount. I don't know that would have caused any kind of disparities. I wonder, Rachel, if that slight misstep toward the beginning of her routine, if maybe one of the judges just didn't catch it.
Yeah, my 2 thoughts, and again, I don't know what they're actually discussing. So the dismount, it has to be valued at a certain level in collegiate gymnastics. So one judge may have seen it as more of a pike shape, and one judge may have seen it as a layout shape with a body deduction, a body shape deduction. So that could be one thing. The other thing is on her acro series, if one judge saw it as connected together, she would get value for that acro series. If one judge saw a slight move of a foot and they didn't give her credit for the acro series, she would be minus a special requirement, which would really devalue her start value and her score. So those were kind of my 2 thoughts just in terms of what they might be discussing. But again, we have a totally different viewpoint from what they see.
No, but that's valuable because you've been in that seat before and have experienced maybe not the exact scenario, but similar situation.
They did come up with a 9.5 overall, so pretty an okay score. Again, decent start.
So now Emily Shepard on for the Wolfpack after the slight pause.
And I would think if you want anybody in this scenario where you've now had this big delay, your nerves were already going, and then you have to wait, it's icing the kicker, essentially. it really is kind of, exact scenario. This is who you want in that spot. And I'm going to knock on wood just so I don't jinx anything. But just as such a veteran, Emily can handle that.
It's the only event that she has not earned all Eagle honors, although she's been solid through her career.
And sometimes I forget she's only a sophomore. She's just so poised. She gives off the energy of almost a junior or a senior. But she really is just a freshman, or just a sophomore. Only one season under her belt.
She seems pretty happy with that, Rachel.
Yes. I mean, it was a great routine. So. And these gymnasts have been so great about just following all the protocols, staying in their pods, understanding that it's not just for their health and well-being, it's for the health and well-being of everyone they're going to come in contact with. So totally just different ways of training, of going to school, of being an athlete. So they've all handled it really well.
Floor exercise continues for Pitt. Lauren Beckwith.
And again, I have a feeling she doesn't like floor.
Well, it's funny you say that. This is her first go at the floor exercise in competition, so.
She seems to be enjoying herself. She's doing great so far. And again, only a sophomore. Able to hang on to that landing there. I couldn't tell if she quite went out of bounds. Sometimes you'll see the judge raise their hand if they did, but the difference between gymnastics and a lot of other sports is the line is inbounds. So you can step on the line in gymnastics and you're inbounds, whereas I know if you step on the line in many other sports, you're out of bounds.
Right, yep, exactly. Well, she seemed to have a lot of fun with that. Looked comfortable for her debut with the floor exercise.
Yeah, that was a great way to kick off your career on floor. Hopefully we'll see her more and more in the lineup so she can perfect that and get even better.
Here we go, one of the big hitters on the beam for NC State, Chloe Negretti.
Negretti and Shepard, just two, huge players as freshmen for this NC State team. All Eagle first team on beam last year.
Negretti was second team on vault and floor as well.
And although their season was cut short, she did compete every meet on beam last year, beam and vault. And you could see that kind of a slow connection between her leaps. It was still a connection. She may get a rhythm deduction, but it was still a connection. So those are, again, some of the tactics that gymnasts take just to. They'd rather have give a tenth or two away versus a fall. And
a lot of the creativity in this routine in particular. She dropped to the knee and then threw the Wolfpack hand symbol there.
They all throw the Wolfpack symbol on beam and floor at some point. Sometimes it's hard to catch. Sometimes you're not really looking for it, so you don't notice it. But beam and floor, they all throw the Wolfpack symbol.
So Negretti turns in a solid routine, and we look to Olivia Miller with the floor exercise. One of the key returners for the Panthers this season, and this is one of her main events.
Season high last year of a 9.9. I noticed little things, but that the edge of the floor where she had landed her double back, the seams don't quite line up. So the line, the inbounds line, is slightly skewed on one of those panels.
That's why I love having you here for these.
It may just not have gotten stretched properly. I see some wrinkles in the floor.
I think, Rachel, I think you might be the only person on the planet to make that observation.
I'm just nitpicking. You can see it kind of at the top of the screen in the middle. The panels don't quite line up. So then you wonder, like, well, what happens if she steps on the line on this panel, but not this panel? I just wonder. I'm not a judge, so I don't have to make that call. And again, definitely some fun, upbeat music. I think the biggest thing with floor is you really depend on the crowd helping you get through those final moments on floor, especially that last tumbling pass. And we've seen a couple people fall. The crowd can really play into that, and we've talked already. There really is no crowd. There's a few voices, but both teams talked earlier in the week how they, throughout this season, they're really going to have to be the crowd for themselves and be able to pick everything up.
This is the second pass for Miller. You mentioned the upbeat music. A lot of transitions with those.
Yes.
You don't always hear from pass to pass. It's actually a different song choice.
Right.
But hers was choppy like that.
A lot of collegiate gymnasts pick out their own music. They have it custom spliced and put together, some of their favorite songs. But you also get some that are just more classical in nature, so you get that as well.
Nicole Webb for NC State.
Nicole reminded me of that because her music in the past has typically been a little bit more classical, but I have no idea what she'll come out with. Some gymnasts change it every year. Some change their routines every couple of years.
Well, now I'm excited. The floor exercise as well.
Yes.
A tough fall there. Right back up and right back to it.
And she's a seasoned veteran. I mean, that's definitely, abnormal for Nicole, but she was out last season just due to injuries. So, she has had some extended time off, and again, kind of getting back into that mental place. It can take a meet or two.
And we've seen a few competitors for both of these teams in that type of situation where they were injured a year ago, but Webb, just like the others prior to her injury, really impressive stuff. In 2019, she was first team beam all tournament, as well as second team floor.
Yeah, and you see, I mean, she's got one leg half wrapped. She's got, she is all bandaged up, so she's fighting through it.
She was the sixth and final for NC State, but they will have Katie Cox as an exhibition run on the beam.
This is Olivia Miller on floor for Pitt.
Second team All-Eagle here a year ago. Career best of a 9.9 for Olivia.
She's definitely played into, like I mentioned before, they've had a lot of program highs under this current coaching staff, and she's definitely played into those. So same thing like on beam, she had a leap series is what they call it. So leaps and jumps all in combination. They've got to do different saltos within the exercise. So different things that some of the judges are looking for. A salto. Most people would prefer to call it a flip of some sort.
And rather than Miller, that was Kylie Robotin in place of Olivia Miller. So our lineup had said that it would be Miller. Robotin, 9.875.
So close. Close to Miller's 9.9. You know.
For sure. Certainly another solid competitor, but we had it mixed up on our lineups here.
Katie Cox on beam for NC State.
And I know exactly what happened, Rachel. Nayera Winder was supposed to be 6th in the floor exercise. So Robotin enters
Gotcha. Yep, that
in
makes
her
more
place,
sense.
and now Olivia Miller will presumably close it out.
And then, again, I wasn't sure if after her vault if we would see her on floor. They may just rest her knee and then make sure that nothing's wrong. So I'll just have to tune into some of their meets later on because I'm really anxious to see this floor routine. A great acro combination from Katie. So again, that's that back handspring layout step out that we'll see plenty of. Hasn't typically been in the vault lineup for the Wolfpack, but she does do quite a bit of these exhibitions just in case she's ever needed. And like we mentioned before, I think if you're ever going to need your exhibition gymnast to get some experience, and if you're going to need your lineups to be deep, this is probably the year that that's going to happen.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, as we've seen, a few injuries so far. And of course, we hope everybody's okay, but this might be the year where you have to, hodgepodge a lineup together here and there to make it through an Eagle season.
Yeah, I think this year you're just never going to know when you will be called to the plate.
Well, that does it for the third rotation with the fourth and final on the way. So NC State, the home team, moves to the floor exercise, and for Pitt, it will be the balance beam. That's on the other side here on ESPN3. In rotation number 3, ran 6 competitors as well as a 7th for exhibition. How do you think they did?
I thought they did a fantastic job. So most scores in that 9.7 plus range. Karina, we saw with the judges conference, so a little bit low there at a 9.5, but again, first time out on balance beam, and there may have been some questionable things. Nicole Webb unfortunately had that fall, but again, fluke accident by her. She'll be right back into that 9.8 range in no time.
And for Pitt, with the floor exercise, they had an injury. They had to have a substitution, so Nayera Winder out.
Yeah, I think Pitt did a great job on floor, especially for their first meet of the season. We did see a couple falls on the last tumbling pass, and typically that's just because you're gassed, you're winded at the end, and you just don't quite have the endurance built up yet. But it's still early on this season, just like everything else. It's been unprecedented, so they're all overcoming obstacles, and I have no doubt that they will be right back in where they need to be coming up.
So Lauren Beckwith, 9.775 for Pitt, as well as Olivia Miller meeting that mark. Kylie Robotin, all things considered, she came in a pinch and was asked to do a floor exercise routine and scored a 9.55.
Yeah, again, she may have gotten her touch warm up. I assume that she probably warmed up a couple of hours ago, but again, mentally, you don't always expect to be thrown into that spot, especially as the meet's already started. But I think she did a great job there. And
before we take a look at how last season ended, how about this, Rachel? That's Samantha Snyder via FaceTime talking to her team. As you've seen, they've had the iPad set up, and that Bluetooth speaker, I wondered what that was for at first, but that's obviously how she's communicating with her team in her absence. If there's any silver lining to the pandemic and setting everything awry with events like this, the ease of communication by mobile devices like that has to be one of them.
People have gotten creative with technology.
So here's how things finished up in 2020 for both teams. We mentioned the dual meet with Minnesota for NC State. Pitt had lost that one as well. And then, of course, ensuing the weeks after, basically everything was shut down around college athletics and the world at large.
Yeah, the Panthers actually broke two school records over the course of 2020. So they had a team road score of 196.5 at West Virginia. They had a team vault score of a 49.325 at Arizona. So they were making strides, and then it was, like you said, it was all just cut short. NC State, again, they had an impressive season in 2020. So regular season championship, they crossed the 196 threshold in 5 meets. The last time out, NC State, so it was February 8th of last year, so not quite a full year ago, these two teams went head to head. NC State won 196.025 to 195.35. And again, so they're both back for redemption. There's a lot of unfinished business, and they're really just enjoying every day as it comes because they don't know if this season is going to get cut short too.
I love seeing, Rachel, you mentioned the unfinished business. A competitor like Katrina Koka there, who just led off on the balance beam.
Phenomenal.
And in her 6th season as a gymnast, made her debut on the balance beam.
Absolutely phenomenal. You never hear about a 6th-year gymnast. So I think it's fantastic that the NCAA has allowed her to fully compete out those 4 full years of eligibility. That's fantastic. And the fact that her body can still do it when she's probably close to 24, if not 24 years old. I know after college, my body was done. So she's gone on for 2 more years.
Well, you look at the inverse of that in Karina Jordan. This is her first collegiate meet, and she's competed in all 4 events as she leads things off with the floor exercise.
Is she the 17-year-old too? I can't remember.
If I'm not mistaken, she turned 18 over the summer,
okay.
I think.
Okay, it's the other freshman. I'll have to. The freshman, it takes me a little longer to remember who is who. But, again, you look at it, there's roughly a 6-7 year age difference. So
Jordan here was a 2-time Junior Olympics Nationals qualifier, though.
And again, freshman year, hey, you're an all-arounder. Like it's not like, oh, you have some strong events. Oh, you're better on vault and floor than you are on beam and bars. Nope. You're fantastic. You're an all-arounder. You're in the lineup in the leadoff spot. So it's not just that she's kind of middle, I say middle of the pack, literally and figuratively. She's not just middle of the pack, but she has been the leadoff on 3 of 4 events. So I think that just goes to show that she's a strong competitor and she's consistent. So again, that leadoff spot consistency is key.
And we'll go to Olivia Miller on the balance beam for Pitt. Speaking of all-around competitors, Rachel, this not by score, by career best score. This is her weakest of the 4 events, but it's a 9.8, so not too shabby.
Right. I would love for my worst to have been at a 9.8. It's just, again, most people their best is a 9.8. So for that to be the low end, I think it just shows how you are as a gymnast and a competitor. An unfortunate fall. Again, I think that fall was probably just a fluke accident, kind of like Nicole Webb's. It happens. It's the first meet of the season. I don't expect them to come out here and look like they're going to in 3 months. They might expect that out of themselves, but I personally don't.
For sure, and it's understandable that they would.
Yeah, I think it's different with a program between these two teams where you're typically ranked in, I would say, kind of the 20s nationally. There's a big difference between these programs and then Oklahoma, who's consistently ranked #1, and they come out and they get a 197 in their first meet. Very different caliber of gymnasts when you've got a lot of elite athletes where these are watered down routines. For those individuals, you've got a lot of ex-Olympians on some of these top 10 schools. So again, it's kind of a different playing field.
So we move on to another freshman, again going second for this exercise, but maybe not before some more deliberation between our judges.
We haven't seen Benson in a couple of rotations. I think she was on vault, and then
she was on vault, and she went second behind Karina Jordan there as well.
So it looks like they have come to a conclusion. I saw one of the, I don't know what those things are called, one of the score things turn around. So the judges on those, they have to flash their start value. So what they came up with.
Is it a flipper? Is it a score flipper?
A turn something. I'm not 100% sure, but on one side you've got the numbers that show the start value. So from a 9.5, how close to a 10 did they get? And then on the other side, they actually show the score, and then the judges have to average those two scores. So they've got to flip it around at the same time so that neither judge can change their score in the middle of it. So they put their hand typically on top to show that they're ready. Just fun facts.
Nice first pass there for Benson.
That was big.
Her debut for the floor exercise.
We've talked before in seasons past that this NC State floor is very bouncy, and it just by watching 40 seconds of her floor routine, I feel like she's already got a lot of power. So one thing she will probably have to work on is controlling the landings as to not step out of bounds or overdo something. I don't know if I like all the masks on this side. Normally you can see people's reactions, and the masks just mask it all.
Well, especially during the floor exercise here, is when you normally have
you've got so
teammates that are lined up. Yeah. They're going through the motions with their hands.
The cheering and the copycats on the sidelines are always fun. So big double back there. You could see just a little bit under rotated. She had to take that step forward, which to the judges signifies that she either opened the tuck position up too soon or she didn't quite have enough height or rotation. So again, all different ways that the judges are going to come to the conclusion that that's a deduction.
I think that was a smile on Kim Landerson.
I think so. If you could see under the mask.
You judge the best you can when you see with the mask on, right? And the eyes were bunched up. I think it was a smile.
You get used to understanding if someone's smiling with their eyes.
Some people, admittedly, I'm not great at it. Some people are better at it than others.
I believe this is Kylie Robatin.
So she got called in to do an emergency substitute floor exercise, but this one she was originally scheduled to perform. And this is her strongest event, career best of a 9.9.
She actually had a season best on beam against NC State in that meet that we talked about February 8th. So 9.825 was a season best last year. We'll see if she can do it again. Maybe it's the NC State thing. She seems pleased.
And that was an interesting dismount, Rachel. It was just an interesng turn, right? I don't think we've seen exactly the way she approached it.
Yeah, we'll take another look at it. So just a punch front tuck full with that small step back on the landing. So again, over the last couple of years, maybe 2, 3, 4 years, I've seen the gymnasts, especially in college gymnastics, get a little bit more creative in terms of the skills that they're doing. I think it keeps the judges on their toes a little bit more, but it also just provides a little bit more visually appealing aspects for the audience, for the gymnasts themselves. It gives them just more variety to do so that they're not all doing.
Well, I would say just
thing.
in the comparison between you and I, you're a lifer in this, and I went ooh when she made that the small intricate
small little
change.
changes. Yeah. Because again, you used to see on beam particularly, everyone did a back handspring layout step out as their acro series. They all did some sort of round off twisting dismount or a round off double back dismount off the end. And now you see a lot more variety.
So far, so really good for Katie Cox.
Yeah, this has been fantastic. And Katie, again, one of the key players in NC State's lineup, really since she joined the program. I always try to look for the wolf symbol, but sometimes I take a look at my notes. Sometimes I'm looking between different monitors and screens, and I miss it.
Well, that was impressive. I'll be interested to see what the score comes in at for the senior, one of 5 for NC State.
She's been really fun to watch just as she has matured throughout her tenure as a collegiate gymnast. I remember watching her when she first came in, coming from club gymnastics, and again, she graduated mid-year, so she was used to one way of doing things and then thrown into a different way of doing things. And you could tell she was a little bit more stiff, a little bit more rigid, and now, you know, it flows more. It's calm. Calm is a relative word, but you can just see more confidence kind of exuded from her. Which has been really fun to watch her career develop over the years.
Jordan Cesarini here for Pitt. A lot of confidence.
A lot of
confidence. Final 2 events are sort of her forte, and I don't think it's any coincidence that these are the 2 that allow for the most variety, the most creativity with the floor and now the balance beam.
Yeah, we've talked about it before that she has just been an absolute key player on this team for the last 4 years. I mean, she's got so many accolades under her name. It's every year she's earning and winning something.
Nice finish. Sort of a subpar day by her standards because she had that fall with her floor exercise. I'm sure she's excited to get a solid routine.
Yeah, I think a little bit of redemption on the beam. She did have, a couple of minor balance errors, a couple bobbles, balance checks, whatever you want to call them, and then that small step on the landing. There you see her heading straight over to coach to get some words. But again, I think for a season opener, given what these ladies have gone through, they've done phenomenal.
Casey Nelson now with the floor exercise for NC State.
Always a fun one to watch. I'm almost glad they don't have to wear masks while they're competing, just because it would take a lot away from the floor. At least you can see their facial expression. All Eagles' second team on the floor last year. So again, Casey, very solid, very consistent performance. So she doesn't always get the biggest scores. She doesn't get low scores. She's always somebody that you can just guarantee is going to go out there, do their job, be successful, and get a counting score towards the overall team.
Some clapping there in the routine. We haven't seen a lot of that today.
And you still see her teammates on the side. I mean, they throw the Wolves up before every final tumbling pass. It gives a little energy. I don't know if you knew that by throwing up the wolf sign, it gives you a little extra oomph. But they're always doing half of the routine with her on the sideline.
Yeah, I don't know. Always. To be frank, I don't know if Casey Nelson needed any extra energy there. She was amped up. That was fun to watch.
And she's going to make the most of everything she can in her senior year. Again, we don't know how long these gymnasts are going to get to compete. We don't know if it'll be cut short again. So I guarantee you every senior out here is living each moment.
It's Trinity Macy following up Jordan Cesarini on the beam for Pitt. You saw the score come in for Jordan, 9.65.
A little low to, like you said, to her standards. That was okay.
Yeah, it's been a bit of a rough day for her by her standards, given again the floor exercise. She took the fall. It was a 9-1.
Yeah, not bad, but again, she sets the bar so high for herself that there's definitely some disappointment in that one. Even though she made a routine, she got a good score. She'll want to improve upon those.
And the freshman Macy, a little bit of a hop to readjust her balance at the end of that. As we'll now go to Emily Shepard next on the floor exercise for NC State.
We had kind of the two of the key freshmen from last year, on this NC State team. They had some routines to replace. Drew Grantham was the anchor on NC State's floor lineup. Maybe a couple of meets that she missed due to one reason or another. But now you've got Emily followed closely by Chloe Negretti, who we'll see just here momentarily. I almost want to start calling them like the dynamic duo.
Well, to your point, you mentioned earlier that you sometimes forget how young Emily is, just a sophomore. I mean, it's nice to have younger competitors in your program if you're Kim Landris that can take the reins or fill the void that a Drew Grantham leaves so early in their career, because now Coach Landris knows she has those two for the extended future.
Yeah, and it's interesting to see that Karina Jordan and Madison Benson have gone back to back on a couple of events, because I do remember last year that Emily and Chloe went back to back on most of their events. They were always kind of right there neck and neck. So it's been fun to watch them. And again, I'm going to start calling them the dynamic duo because they're always back to back.
Even down to the same major. Both listed as life science first-year majors.
You almost wonder if they planned it.
What came first?
Right. Right.
The major or the friendship?
The only team that she made All Eagles second team last year. So far, her season's, if it's anything like today, it's going to be off to a great start.
The verticality there on that pass.
And again, it's like she's a senior, but she's only a sophomore, because you've seen on some of the other gymnasts, when they do that double back at the end, they don't land standing up. So they either open their tuck position early, or a couple on the Pitt team had to put their hands down, and it's like the pandemic didn't happen. She's got the endurance, she's got the poise. She's just picking up right where she left off last year.
Lauren Beckwith onto the beam for the Panthers. And Rachel, as we said in the open, we're not on site, so things look a bit different for us this time around. I would have been interested to have been floor level for that.
Yeah.
Because if there's a way that they measure how far off of the ground a competitor gets on that final pass, I think that might have taken the cake Emily Shepard for highest of the day.
Yeah, they should get some sort of like measuring tool. You know, we can superimpose it onto the screens and see. They do that with some of the SEC schools, the Olympics, those kinds of things. They've got some of those graphics where they can see how high, like on bars when they do a release move, how high above the bar they go. We could do that on floor. Let's take another quick look here at Beam. She's going to do this side aerial into a full twist dismount. I will say that particular dismount, as I talk about how things have changed and we're seeing a lot more variety, that dismount is becoming more and more popular. I see more and more gymnasts doing it. It's a great combination. The actual dismount part, the full twist, you don't have to do as hard of a skill because you're doing it in combination with that side aerial. So that is one that I'll be curious to see over the next few years, is do more people, more and more gymnasts adopt that, and then what happens to the value level of it if too many gymnasts start doing it.
So Lauren Beckwith, that was the third event we have seen her on. But that's her event.
That is her event.
She was Beam in 7 meets in 2020 as a freshman. So you can tell a lot more comfortable there as Chloe Negretti started with the floor exercise.
A little stumble of the feet on her first tumbling pass, but she was going for a stick. Again, you can take that step. Chloe likes to stick. If she doesn't need to take that step, she won't do it.
Second team All-Eagle floor exercise.
You saw the stick on that one. She doesn't have to move her feet. She won't. A career and season best last year, obviously. They're all career best if you're a freshman. But at 9.9 last year, so she'll definitely be looking to best that in this season or years to come. But she set the bar pretty high for herself. And again, she went for the stick, and then just that little tiny stumble at the end.
Just a little bit of a slide.
Yeah.
But finishes pretty strong.
Still a fantastic routine. Piggybacking off of Emily's. Emily with a 9.85 on floor. I would think that's going to be pretty similar.
And we'll wrap up this last rotation with one more exhibition. Here's Nicole Webb. You mentioned she had talked about changing up her music earlier. So I'm interested to see what she
I have no idea what, we don't actually get insight to any of these routines prior to we see it as you guys are viewing it, especially since we're not in the gym. Normally we do get a little bit of a preview if we're watching them during warm-ups or something of the sort. But since we're off-site, then we have not seen their warm-ups. We haven't seen anything prior, so no idea what they're going to do.
Webb has competed in the floor exercise before, actually with a career best of 9.85.
And she's so fun to watch. Everyone always talks about like the lines on a gymnast, just the line from when their fingers are extended above their head just down to their toe point, and she just has a gorgeous line. She's a gymnast, but dancing and that kind of stuff. It's just really pretty to watch. And she did actually do other sports growing up, but surprisingly she was a swimmer, not a dancer. Karina was a dancer until she was about 10 and then picked gymnastics over dance. But I would have maybe
some interesting translatability there, I would think,
yeah.
with swimming. Right? In a lot of cases, this might be oversimplistic, Rachel, but isn't a lot of what they're doing at Reynolds Coliseum this evening kind of like air swimming?
Kind of. Yeah, I've never thought of it that way. I guess you could put it that way. Many years of doing this, and I don't think I've ever thought of it as air swimming.
Many years of broadcasting events for sports, sometimes sports I know better than others, and just trying to find ridiculous comparisons. That's what brings that up.
You do what you can. And again, just a little off tempo on that tumbling pass, maybe a little bit of a lack of endurance. I couldn't quite tell if her butt actually hit the floor or if it was just a really deep squat. Not sure which one on that. She is not smiling with her eyes. She is not pleased with herself on that routine.
Yeah, definitely not. But just an exhibition for the Wolfpack, so we got some bonus floor exercise there. We'll allow the judges to tally the scores and come back to see who the victors are this evening between Pitt and NC State, right back here at Reynolds Coliseum on ESPN3. Back with you at Reynolds Coliseum to close things out. Darren Vaught, Rachel Garland, as the scores have been tallied. And Rachel, it will be a win in the Eagles season opener for NC State over the Pitt Panthers, 194-925 to 192-8.
Yeah, I think there were some absolute standout items from the meet tonight. I think there's a lot of areas for improvement. So as we take a look back through the highlights, Chloe Negretti and Emily Shepard obviously making key contributions. So strong scores across the board from those two individuals. We had some strong new freshman faces as well. So Madison Benson coming in and contributing on a couple of events, and then Karina Jordan, who started her career as an all-arounder.
And Karina Jordan, the second best all-around score on the day, only to be topped by her teammate, the sophomore Emily Shepard. For Shepard, it was a 39.225. For Jordan, 38.75. And then Olivia Miller of Pitt with a 38.35, as well as the third all-around competitor. So you like what you saw out of the youth for both of these teams. I think we promised a good one, right? 1 and 2 in the preseason Eagles standings. It was close. What's interesting to me, Rachel, is each of these teams could do better.
Yeah, like I said, there were some really fantastic highlights from both teams, but there were clearly some areas of improvement for both teams. So final thoughts, I think it was a strong season opener. I think given the pandemic just overall, tonight was a great way to start off the season. I think that they've got some areas to improve. I think they really just hope that this season continues.